So as you're scaling your company, and if you're B2B, at some point you're going to get to that point where enterprise is the next big, horizon for you, or it's the sort of the next level. And why do you need enterprise sales, or when does that really begin to make sense? Well, for some companies, it starts on day one. But if you've been selling to SMBs, or that's been your go-to-market strategy, what'll happen is that you'll get to, say you're up in 7 figures of revenue, you're doing 2 million, 3 million, 4 million in revenue. The challenge becomes the following. If you're doing 4 million in revenue and you need to grow at 50% over the course of the next year, that's your target. Well, you've got to put 2 million on the books. So let's do some quick math here. So let's say you're at 4 million ARR, so 50% growth, right? What is that? That equals 2 million, right? So you need to get 2 million. Let's say that your typical contract, your ACV is something like, I don't know, let's call it 10K. So 10K means, 10K ACV, right? That was pretty similar to where we were at that time. Probably honestly a little higher than where we were, at that time. So a 10K ACV, well, how many of these do you need to get to 2 million? Well, you need 200, right? 200 new customers. If I'm doing my math right, that's 2,000, so yeah, it's 2 million. And so that's 200 new customers. That is not a small number of closes. Certainly it wasn't in our case. That was at our sort of peak velocity. That would have been a little bit more than a year, like 15 months worth of closes. So not easy. Now, what about enterprise? Well, enterprise is typically defined as 100K plus. So even if you're just selling at 100K, well, now all of a sudden, that's 20 closes. Now, is enterprise easy? No. But quite often, there's sort of an 80-20 rule where some of those enterprise deals are going to be quite large. Once you have a product and a capability that can support it. And so you might end up with a deal that's 500K, maybe even $1 million. Maybe, as in our case, your big deal will end up being more than a couple million. And so it'll be actually less than one client, or one client that will take you all the way through numbers like this. So enterprise becomes a way that you get from 2, 3, 4 million ARR all the way up to 6, 8, 10, and beyond. And so what are some ways to think about enterprise? Because it's a different beast. And of course, there's tons of content on LinkedIn about how to sell enterprise, and I'm not here to tell you to be an enterprise sales coach. Just want to point out a couple of things that worked for us or that worked for others that I know. And one is that enterprise sales cycles can be long, right? But one way that you can engage psychologically with someone, and it sometimes can be effective, is to get your foot in the door, not just through conversation, but by actually delivering something of value. And here's what's more important, by actually charging something for that thing of value. And so this is an idea that is not mine, came from another company in our space, but something like a $2,500 charge. And this is for design, analysis, that sort of thing. You can call it consulting. That's really what it is. It is a service offering. Maybe it's defined. But what it actually is that you analyze your customer's problem. So you offer to go deeper with them and say, hey, for $2,500, what we can do is we can engage, we can go deeper with you, and we can actually, figure out a path forward, a solution path for you. Again, whether or not you buy our software. This is a solution path. This is what we recommend that you do. Obviously, our software fits into that. There are other options. But you kind of you're on their side because you're providing a concrete service for a very limited outlay. And why $2,500? Historically, $2,500 is commonly, now not always, but it's commonly an expense report limit. And so the theory was that at a lot of big companies, mid-level management, potential champions that you might have, could spend $2,500 without getting upper-level approval. Obviously, that'll depend on the organization you're selling to, but that's the theory of it. Now, maybe that number has changed. Maybe it's gone up now. But anyway, $2,500 being a potential line where you can just get your foot in the door. And again, once people have paid you some money, the second thing that comes in, which you can use in your favor, You may have heard of the fallacy of sunk costs. So you're never supposed to make decisions based on money that you paid in the past because it's done and gone, right? The problem is human nature is deeply bound to sunk costs. And so here you can use it in your favor. After they pay you the $2,500, they're kind of committed to you. Psychologically, they feel that way. You've gained more commitment than $2,500 worth of commitment. That much I can assure you. Psychologically, in their minds, it's like, oh, we're already doing business with these people. And so that's a way that you can sort of, get your hooks in, so to speak. So that's sort of one approach that can be very effective. The other thing that I would say is bear in mind, when you're competing in the enterprise, who are you competing against? Well, you're probably competing against big incumbents. So, versus the big boys. In our case, when we were competing against the big boys, we were competing against truly big boys, companies like BlackRock. So companies with 100 billion plus market caps that had armies of consultants and sales execs and all of that. So what advantages does a startup bring to the table versus these big incumbents? Well, one of the nice things is that you can always move faster, guaranteed. If you are worth anything as a startup, you can move faster, and virtually guaranteed. Now, sometimes this second one doesn't hold true for specific reasons, but generally speaking, you will be both cheaper and you will move faster. In our case, in those competitions, we found both of those to be true. We were able to make, wireframes of what potential solutions would look like faster for free, just to kind of show things. We were able to even build out, sort of prototypes and things like that. And our bid was half, the big enterprise competitors like the BlackRocks of the world. And so both of those are ways that you can attack the problem. Those are the advantages that you have, and you've got to leverage them. So 2 things to keep in mind as you begin to venture into enterprise or you consider it. And next time maybe I'll tell a story about how we succeeded.